I paid for 4 years of my daughter's life. Tuition, rent, books, everything she said she needed. In the morning I showed up to watch her graduate. My name wasn't anywhere in the program. Not under family, not under acknowledgments, not even in the small print at the back. I stood there in the parking lot for a while, just holding my phone, looking at the payment confirmation for her final semester. $85,000, paid in full. And somehow, I wasn't part of the moment it paid for. Now, maybe that doesn't sound like much to you. Maybe you're thinking it's just a program, just a piece of paper. But when you've spent years showing up quietly, writing checks, fixing problems before they turn into emergencies, you start to believe you've earned a place in the room. Not a spotlight, just a seat, just a name. So I stood there longer than I should have, reading that program again like I missed something, like maybe my eyes skipped a line. They hadn't, and that was the first time I felt it clearly. Something had shifted, not suddenly, not loudly, just quietly, like a chair being pulled back from the table without a word. I wish I could tell you that was the moment everything made sense. It wasn't. At that point, I was still trying to explain it away, still telling myself there had to be a reason. A simple one, a harmless one. There always is, right? At least that's what I used to believe. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm 62 years old, retired high school history teacher, widower. My wife passed 5 years ago. Cancer, quick at the end. Long before that, we had one child, Emily. Everything we built, everything we planned, it was always for her. When my wife got sick, I added Emily to my accounts, just in case, just to make things easier. That's what you do when you think in terms of family. You don't calculate, you prepare. And when my wife passed, Emily became the center of everything that was left. Not because she asked, because I needed somewhere to put the love that didn't have a place anymore. So I helped quietly, consistently, without conditions. When she got into college, I told her not to worry about money. Focus on school. Focus on building a life. I'll take care of the rest. And I meant that. Every word of it. The tuition payments came first, then the apartment near campus. It was more expensive than I expected, but she said it was safer, closer to classes, less stress. So I said yes. There were textbooks, then a laptop, then another laptop when the first one slowed down. There was a summer program she wanted to join, an internship that didn't pay. A certification course, she said, would open doors. Each time, it sounded reasonable. Each time, it felt like the right thing to do. You don't raise a child for 20 years just to start saying no when it matters. At least that's what I told myself. And for a while, everything looked fine. She called less, but that's normal. She visited less, but that's expected. She had her own life, her own schedule, her own world. I respected that, or at least I thought I did. Looking back, the changes weren't big. They were small, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. The first time I noticed something was a conversation at dinner. She had brought her boyfriend over. Nice enough kid, polite, well-spoken. He asked me what I did before retiring. I told him. We talked about work, about school, about plans after graduation. Then Emily laughed and said, "Don't worry. My dad always figures things out financially." She said it casually, like a joke. Everyone laughed, including me. But something about the way she said it stayed with me. It wasn't pride. It wasn't gratitude. It was certainty. Like she wasn't describing me. She was describing a system, and I let that thought go because it didn't feel important enough to hold on to. That's how most of these things work. They don't arrive as problems. They arrive as moments you decide not to question. A few months later, she mentioned she was short on rent. Unexpected expense. Something about a deposit. I didn't ask many questions. I transferred the money. Same day. Then it happened again. Different reason. Same urgency. Same expectation that I would step in. And I did. Because by then, it felt normal. Routine, even. Like paying a bill that shows up every month. You don't think about whether it should be there. You just take care of it. There was a small account I had set up years ago, originally for emergencies, medical mostly. I added Emily to it when my wife got sick, so she could help manage things if needed. After that, I didn't check it often. There was no reason to. Until one afternoon, about 6 months before graduation, I logged in by accident. I was looking for something else. Clicked the wrong tab, and there it was. A series of withdrawals. 500 here, 300 there, 1,200 one week, then 200. No notes, no messages, no calls, just numbers, moving in one direction. I sat there for a while, trying to match each withdrawal to something I remembered. A conversation, a request, anything. Most of them didn't match anything at all. And that was the moment I felt the first real shift. Not anger, not yet, just confusion. Because up until then, every dollar had a story, a reason, a conversation attached to it. Now, there were gaps, and gaps have a way of changing how you see everything around them. I didn't call her right away. I didn't confront anything. I told myself there had to be an explanation. There's always an explanation. Maybe she forgot to mention it. Maybe she assumed I wouldn't mind. Maybe I wouldn't have if she had just said something. That's the part that stayed with me. Not the money, the silence. A week later, I brought it up, gently, over the phone. I kept my voice even. Told her I noticed a few withdrawals. Asked if everything was okay. She paused, just for a second. Then she said, "Oh yeah, I meant to tell you about that. Meant to, not forgot, not needed to. Meant to. There's a difference." She explained it quickly. Books, groceries, a bill that came up unexpectedly. Nothing dramatic, nothing that sounded unreasonable on its own. And that's what made it harder to question. Each piece made sense, individually, but together, they felt like something else. I didn't push. I told her it was fine. Just asked her to let me know next time. She said, of course. Wouldn't happen again. And for a little while, it didn't. Or maybe I just stopped checking. Sometimes, you don't want to confirm what you already suspect. It's easier to stay in the version of the story that still feels stable. The one where nothing has really changed. The one where you're still the father, and not just the solution. Graduation got closer. Expenses picked up. There was a dress for the ceremony, a dinner reservation for after, plans with her boyfriend's family. They were more involved now, more present. I didn't think much of it. Families grow. That's what happens. Then one evening, she mentioned the program, the printed schedule for the ceremony. She sounded excited, talking about speakers, awards, recognition. I asked where I'd be sitting. Just a simple question. She hesitated. Not long, just enough for me to notice. "Oh, seating's kind of limited," she said. "They had to prioritize certain guests." I remember that word. Prioritize. I asked what that meant. She said her boyfriend's parents were coming. Extended family too. They wanted to make sure everyone felt included. I didn't say anything right away. Just listened. Let her finish. Then I asked, "So where do I fit into that?" Another pause. This one longer. And that's when I realized I didn't actually know the answer to that question anymore. Not really. Not in the way I thought I did. And I didn't know yet that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. I didn't push her after that. Not that night. There's a point in a conversation where you feel it. If you ask one more question, something breaks. And I wasn't ready for that yet. So I let it sit. Told her I understood. Told her I'd figure it out. We hung up like everything was normal. That's the thing about these moments. They don't explode right away. They settle. They wait. They make themselves comfortable in the background. And then they start connecting to other things. Over the next few days, I found myself thinking about that word, prioritize. It's a clean word, organized, reasonable. You hear it in workplaces, in meetings, in plans. You don't expect to hear it in your own family, not when it comes to where you sit, or whether you're included at all. I tried to place it somewhere that made sense. Told myself it was logistics, limited space, too many people. Someone had to make decisions. But every time I ran that explanation through my head, it came back incomplete. because space wasn't the real issue. There's always room for one more chair. What there isn't always room for is someone who doesn't fit the version of the moment people want to present. That thought stayed with me longer than I liked. A few days later, I drove down to the campus. Didn't tell her I was coming. I just wanted to see the place again. Walk the grounds. Get a sense of where everything would be. It had been a while since I visited. She always said she was busy. Classes, projects, friends, life moving forward the way it should. The campus looked the same. Students walking between buildings. Groups sitting on the grass. Phones out. Headphones in. Everything moving. Everything loud in its own quiet way. I found the auditorium where the ceremony would be held. Big building. Glass front. Modern. There was a sign posted near the entrance. Event details. Seating sections. Guest access. I stood there reading it longer than necessary, looking for something specific, something that would explain what she said. There were sections labeled for families, reserved areas, priority seating, and I noticed something. There were multiple tiers, different levels of access, different categories of family. I read that part twice, not because I didn't understand it, because I understood it too clearly. It wasn't about space. It was about placement. Who gets seen? Who gets recognized? Who gets positioned? I stepped back from the sign, watched people walk in and out, trying to picture where I would be in that room. And for the first time, I couldn't. Not in any clear way. That's when the questions started to change. It wasn't just, where am I sitting? It became, where do I actually stand in her life now? And that's a different kind of question. You don't ask that one lightly. You don't always want the answer. On the drive home, I thought about the last few years, not in big events, in small patterns, how often she called, what she called about, what she didn't call about. There's a difference between sharing your life and reporting your needs. I started noticing that difference more clearly. The calls that used to be about her day became calls about something she needed solved. A bill, a decision, a problem she didn't want to deal with alone. And I had been answering those calls the same way every time. Steady, available, no hesitation. That kind of consistency feels like love. But over time, it can start to feel like something else. Something expected. Something assumed. A few evenings later, I was going through old emails. Not for any specific reason. Just organizing things. Clearing out space. That's when I came across a thread I hadn't opened in a while. It was between Emily and someone else. Forwarded to me months back for a completely different reason. I almost deleted it without reading. Then I noticed a line near the top. Something about tuition. I opened it. Scrolled slowly. Not looking for anything in particular. Just reading. And then I saw it. A message from her. Short. Casual. Don't worry about the cost. My dad always covers it. No pause. No hesitation. No uncertainty. Just a statement. Like describing the weather. I sat there with that line on the screen, reading it more times than I care to admit, trying to hear the tone behind it, trying to imagine how she meant it. Was it confidence? Trust? Or was it something else? Because the way it landed with me, it didn't feel like either of those. It felt final, like a conclusion she had already reached, a rule she had already accepted. That was the moment something inside me shifted again. Not outwardly, not in a way anyone else could see, but internally, something adjusted, like a lens coming into focus. You don't lose clarity all at once. You lose it gradually. And then one day, you get it back all at once. After that, I started paying attention differently. Not more. Just more honestly. There's a difference. The next time she called, I noticed how quickly the conversation moved. Straight to the point. No build-up. No small talk. There was a charge for something. An unexpected fee tied to graduation. She explained it in a way that made it sound urgent, time-sensitive, like something that needed to be handled immediately. I listened. Let her finish. Then I asked a simple question. Have you already paid part of it? There was a pause, longer than usual. Then she said no. She was waiting for me to step in. That part wasn't said out loud. It didn't need to be. You can hear expectation without words. It sits in the silence. I told her I'd think about it. Not no, not yes. Just, I'll think about it. That was new. I could hear it in her voice right away. A shift, subtle. But there, she didn't push. But she didn't like it either. We ended the call shortly after. Polite, efficient, nothing out of place. Except everything felt slightly off. That night, I didn't sleep well. Not because of the money, because of the pattern. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And your mind starts filling in the spaces between moments, connecting things you used to keep separate. The next morning, I checked the account again, the one I hadn't paid much attention to before. More withdrawals, smaller this time, but frequent, regular, like a rhythm I hadn't been listening to. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't occasional. This wasn't situational. This was a system, a quiet one, an efficient one that worked because I never questioned it, because I made it easy not to. I closed the laptop, sat there for a while, just letting that thought settle. There's a moment when something stops being accidental and starts becoming intentional. You don't always know exactly when that line is crossed, but you feel it when you get there. Later that afternoon, I went for a walk. Same route I've taken for years. Past the same houses, same trees, same turns. Routine has a way of clearing your head, or at least that's what I used to think. That day, it didn't. It just made everything quieter. And in that quiet, things get louder. I thought about my wife, about how she used to notice things I didn't. Small shifts in tone, changes in behavior, the kind of details I would overlook. Not because I didn't care, because I trusted too easily. She balanced that, saw things from angles I didn't. There were times she would say something felt off, and I would tell her it was nothing, that people mean well, that things work themselves out. She would nod, let it go, but she rarely forgot. Standing there on that sidewalk, I had a thought I hadn't had in years. What would she say about all of this? Not what would she feel, what would she see? Because those are two very different things. Feeling keeps you connected. Seeing changes what you do next. I kept walking, trying to stay with that question, not rush past it, not soften it, just sit with it. And for the first time, I didn't have a comfortable answer. That's when you know something's wrong. Not when things go badly, when you can't explain them in a way that feels honest anymore. The next day, Emily sent me a message. Short, direct. Did you get a chance to look at that fee? No greeting, no context, just the question. I stared at it for a while, not because I didn't understand it, because I understood it too well. There's a difference between asking for help and checking on a transaction, and this felt like the second one. I typed out a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Finally, I just said, I'm still thinking about it. That was all. Nothing more. A few minutes later, she replied, okay. Just that. One word. Flat. Neutral. But it carried something underneath. Something I hadn't heard from her before. Distance. Not physical. Something else. Something harder to define. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about money anymore. It never really was. It was about something I had allowed to grow quietly, without ever asking what it was becoming. And I had a feeling whatever came next was going to force that answer out into the open. The next call didn't come. Not that day. Not the day after either. For the first time in years, there was no request waiting. No message asking for something to be handled. Just silence. It felt strange at first. Unfamiliar. Like a routine had been interrupted without warning. I kept expecting the phone to ring. Kept checking it without realizing. That's what habits do. They linger even after the pattern breaks. 3 days passed like that. Quiet. Uneventful. I fixed a loose hinge on the kitchen cabinet. Cleaned out a drawer I hadn't opened in years. Sorted through old paperwork I kept meaning to organize. Nothing important. Just small things. But there was something about doing them that felt different. Like I had more space in the day. More room in my head. On the fourth morning, the phone rang. Emily. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I picked up. Her voice was tight. Not angry. Controlled. Did you make a decision? No greeting. No build-up. Straight to it. I told her I had. There was a pause. Then she said, okay. Waiting. I could hang. Waiting for the answer she expected. Not the one I was about to give. I'm not covering it, I said. No explanation. No justification. Just the sentence. It sat there between us. Uncomfortable. Heavy. Then she let out a breath. Short. Sharp. You're serious? I am. Another pause. Longer this time. Then the shift came. Not loud, but unmistakable. So you're just stopping after everything? The way she said everything caught my attention, like it belonged to her, like it was something she had been managing, not receiving. I've helped a lot, I said. Careful, measured. That doesn't mean it continues forever. Her voice changed again, harder now, more direct. This is about the ceremony, isn't it? There it was, the connection she had already made, the one I hadn't spoken out loud. It's about more than that. That's not fair, she said. We've made plans based on what you said. I never promised that, I replied. You said you'd take care of things. I said I would help, I said. That's not the same. Silence. Then something new. Not frustration. Not disappointment. Something colder. You're going to regret this. She said it quietly, flat, like a fact she had already accepted. We'll figure it out ourselves. And then the line went dead. I sat there with the phone in my hand, waiting for something, an emotion, a reaction, anger, fear, anything. But what came instead was something I hadn't expected. Relief, simple, clean, like setting down something heavy you didn't realize you were carrying. I leaned back in the chair, closed my eyes for a moment, and let that feeling settle. It didn't feel like loss. It felt like space. The next few days stayed quiet. No calls, no messages, no follow-ups, just distance. And in that distance, things became clearer. Not all at once, but steadily. Like fog lifting in pieces, I started to see the past differently. Not as separate events, but as a pattern, one that had been building for years, supported by my own decisions, my own habits, my own need to stay useful. That's a hard thing to admit, that sometimes you help create the situation you end up trapped in. About a week later, an envelope showed up in the mail. No return address I recognized. Official looking, thick paper. I opened it at the kitchen table, sat down before reading. Instinct, maybe. Some part of me already knew it wasn't good. It was a formal notice, not a lawsuit, not yet, but close enough. A demand, outlined clearly. They were claiming I had made repeated commitments, financial support for her next program, that she had relied on those commitments, that withdrawing them caused measurable harm. There was a number listed, $20,000, projected costs, expected contribution. It was written in a tone that felt detached, professional, as if it had nothing to do with family, as if it had always been a transaction. I read it twice, not because I didn't understand it, because I did, perfectly. That's when it became real. Not just a shift, not just a change in behavior, but a line, one that had already been crossed. I set the papers down, looked around the room, same kitchen, same table, same chair I'd been sitting in for years. But it didn't feel the same anymore, because the context had changed. That afternoon, I called a friend, Mark. We'd known each other for decades. He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't rush to fix anything. When I finished, he said something simple. You're not dealing with a misunderstanding. I didn't respond right away. He let the silence sit. Then he added, you're dealing with a system that worked until you stopped feeding it. That sentence stayed with me, not because it was harsh, because it was accurate. The next morning, I went to the bank, closed the joint account, removed her access completely, canceled every automatic transfer I had set up over the years. It took longer than I expected. More steps, more confirmations, more signatures. But when it was done, everything felt quieter, more defined, like lines had been drawn where there used to be none. That afternoon, she called again. Different tone this time, sharper. What did you do? I made some changes, I said. You cut me off? I protected my accounts. That's unbelievable. Her voice rose. Not loud, but tight, controlled anger. We have expenses. So do I said. There was a pause. Then she said something that caught me off guard. You're doing this to prove a point. No, I said. I'm doing this because there is a point. Silence again. Then she exhaled. Long, frustrated. I don't even recognize you right now. I thought about that for a second. Then I said, that might be part of the problem. She didn't respond. The line went quiet, and then it ended. A few days later, I received another message. Short, direct, don't come to the ceremony. I read it once. Then again, no explanation, no discussion, just the sentence. Clear, final. I sat there for a long time after that, not reacting, not moving, just letting it settle. There's a moment when something stops surprising you, not because it's small, because it fits. It fits the pattern you've already seen. And that's what this was. Not a shock, a confirmation. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. The day of the ceremony came. I didn't go. Stayed home, made coffee, sat by the window, watched the street like I always do. People passing by, cars moving. Normal day. Nothing outwardly different. Except everything was. I thought about where I would have been sitting. If things were different, what I would have seen, what I would have felt, then I let that go. Because holding on to it didn't change anything. That evening, Mark stopped by, brought takeout. We didn't talk about it much. Didn't need to. Sometimes presence is enough. Later that night, after he left, I sat alone. Quiet house, clock ticking. And for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to feel something I had been avoiding. Not anger, not even sadness. Regret. Not about the money, not about the decisions I made. About the time. The years I spent thinking I was building something. That wasn't being built the same way on the other side. That's the part that stays with you. Not what you gave. What you thought it meant. There's a difference between being needed and being valued. And if you don't see that difference early enough, you end up paying for it later, in ways that don't show up on any statement. A few weeks passed. Life settled into a new rhythm. Simpler, quieter, more predictable. I started doing things I had put off. Small trips, long walks, meeting people I hadn't seen in years. Not to replace anything, just to rebuild something that had been neglected. Then one night, late, my phone rang. Her name on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but I did. She sounded different, not controlled, not sharp, tired. I've been thinking, she said. I didn't interrupt. I didn't see it, she continued. Or maybe I didn't want to. Her voice cracked slightly, then steadied. I got used to things being a certain way. I listened, didn't rush to respond, didn't fill the space. I thought it would always be there, she said. That you would always be there. The same way. There was a long pause. Then she added, I didn't realize what I was doing. I took a breath, let it out slowly. It's not about realizing it now, I said. It's about what you do with it. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, I don't know yet. That's honest, I replied. We talked for a while after that. Not about money, not about plans. Just talked like we used to. It wasn't fixed. Nothing like that. But it was real. And sometimes that's enough to start with. After we hung up, I sat there for a bit, thinking about everything that had happened, not trying to make it neat, not trying to wrap it up, just seeing it for what it was. Clear, simple, uncomfortable, and true. I spent a long time being available, being reliable, being the one who made things easier. There's nothing wrong with that until it becomes the only way people know you. Because then when you stop, they don't see a person changing. They see a system failing. And systems don't get sympathy. They get replaced. You are allowed to step out of that role, even if it confuses people, even if it disappoints them, even if it costs you something, because what it gives you back is something you can't put a number on, clarity. And once you have that, you don't really want to go back, not to the version of yourself that didn't know the difference.